in the past couple of weeks, we've been doing a lot of webinars based directly on certain functionality. So how to use DuckSoup Pro, how to use Turbo, and all the different features. But what we've realized for today is we just wanted to make this a bit more of an open session where there's no set topic. We just want to answer any of your questions and see how we can support each other. And by answering somebody's question, that'll have a lot of value to other people watching now and also in the future. So to introduce myself, my name's Patrick Collins. I'm the head of customer service at DuckSoup, and my role is to basically look after all of your users, make sure you can use the platform in the right way, and listen to your feedback to keep improving the product. I'm also here today with Evelina and Ruta, who are working in customer service every day, and you've probably all spoken to them at some stage via live chat or via email. So I think today we're going to be focusing on Pro and just all the things that are not working, that you don't understand how they work, the context of how they work, maybe some new ideas, things like that. And it's just basically a discussion to see how we can fix any of your problems one by one. So in the chat, if you can just send any problems that you have, and we'll try and work through all of them in the next sort of 30, 35 minutes. And also on the DuckSoup Facebook group, there's a few people that have posted questions that we're going to cover as well. So start asking your questions, start posting, and we'll see how we can help. Just very quickly, for anybody that's a new user, DuckSoup is a LinkedIn lead generation tool. So this is to replace manually doing activities on LinkedIn. So manually connecting with people, manually following up with people, maybe manually scraping email addresses or LinkedIn profiles, things like that. That's what DuckSoup's for, and it's a tool to help you automate your processes to generate new leads and build your connections. So let's get started and let's see what problems we can fix, and hopefully you'll find this helpful. So Ruta, can you keep tabs of everybody asking questions? So Sean and Celia, thanks for that. And as you're asking the questions, there's a few things from the Facebook group that people asked. So one of the first ones is, can you use DuckSoup to send GIFs? So I don't even know if it's GIFs, GIFs, GIFies, well, however you describe it, but basically those animated images that you want to share. I don't think you can use DuckSoup to share a GIF as part of the automation. And so by the automation, I mean, you can't have a GIF in the messaging. So something like here. I don't think that would work too well if you had a link to a GIF here. So in terms of the automation, you can't, but you can use GIFs on LinkedIn with manually working. So if we have a look at a LinkedIn account, and if you click message, there's always a button here. So I've been sharing a few testing this. There's always a button here at the bottom called GIF. And so you can click on that and, I don't know, type in happy. And there you go, loads of different things. Type in duck. It's always a good one. Oh. And there you go, different duck GIFs. So it might be the case that when you're using DuckSoup, you might automate connecting with people, but then when you start the conversation, you might want to use something like that as a GIF. I think it's a dangerous territory to use that because a lot of people on LinkedIn are trying to be more business related. And if you start using things like GIFs, they may feel this is a bit more like Facebook and a little bit toned down. However, it could be a good strategy just to break the ice a bit, have a bit of a laugh, and then start about work. So to sum up that question, you can't use GIFs in part of the automation, but when you're manually following up, there is a section where you click GIF to try that out. So if you're not already using that, have a look. Also, you can have smileys, emojis, all sorts of different things, just to really make the conversation a bit more colorful. Okay, back to DuckSoup. Next question, Ruta. There was a few questions you're asking from the DuckSoup group.
Yeah. Any good resource for learning how to get the most of DuckSoup? Okay,
so to get the most out of DuckSoup, it's a good question because you have two sort of variables to think about. One is how to get the most out of LinkedIn, regardless of the software you use, and then how to get the most out of DuckSoup when you've got a good LinkedIn profile and you've got LinkedIn searches and that sort of thing. So I think step one, the way I learn a new software is automatically always go to the blogs. So if you click on more and go to blog, I would filter through any of these blogs just to see different content. And these are organized by date. So I'd always start with the most recent ones because they're going to be the most up-to-date software. So although we try and update all the blogs and newsletters as the product evolves, the most recent ones are always going to be the most sort of trustworthy ones of the version that DuckSoup is on. So I recommend reading through the most recent blogs and just get a feeling for what's going on. And then start to try, once you get a context of that, try and dig a bit deeper in terms of case studies. So for example, there's a lot of examples here about how people use DuckSoup. And now this can be very detailed, but I think if you read the stages step by step, it's really helpful to understand exactly what they're doing. So this is on which is a bit more advanced, but it still gives you a great introduction. The other thing is, if you click on case studies here, it's a really easy way to say how other companies are using DuckSoup. And I think anytime I learn is the best way to see how anybody else has done it, learn from them, and then try my best to do it even better. So I think that's how to copy these people and see what they're doing that's working well. So once you've had a look at the blogs and once you've had a look at the case studies, I think the next thing is start to read through the knowledge base. So I think if you have a look at, where are we here? Where's the knowledge base? Get support, yeah. So if you click on get support, this is the knowledge base. And this is less easy to read in terms of blog posts. This is more very specific of exactly what to do. So for example, I got a warning from LinkedIn, what should I do? And we just give you a lot of steps, step by step, of how to change your LinkedIn settings. So I think these are the most practical, just to read this and understand exactly what you need to do. And a lot of these settings we share are based on loads of experience from different users giving us advice. So I think the order would be read the blogs, read the case studies, then read the knowledge base, and then get going. The other way is you might ignore all of that, just dive straight onto DuckSoup and just start testing it out. Start making mistakes, start learning things, and see how you feel. We try to offer live chat support during European hours and part US time zone as well. So the majority of the time, you should be able to get support, as well as look through the knowledge base. So with a mix of case studies, blogs, knowledge base, that should really help you. And then finally, webinars like today. If you ever want to message us and say, I really would love to know more information, we might focus a complete blog or complete webinar just on that sort of example. So I hope that gives you a good intro, but the best thing to do is just get started, get testing things. And I think you usually learn from your own mistakes. One really important thing, though, when you get started is try and have all of the options on slow to start with. And by that, I mean, when you have speed, try and have everything slowest. So slowest, and even the settings here, try and have up to maybe 50 per day and 25 per day. The reason being that if you make a mistake, you're only going to make a very small mistake. If you have the wrong settings and you message 500 people with the wrong settings, it's going to be a lot of manual work to fix. So try to have the settings as slow and as small as possible, become comfortable with DuckSoup, then you can always speed up. Okay, Rita, what's the next question?
Should we start covering this?
Yeah, let's see what everybody has.
Okay, so from Sean, can you be on LinkedIn while DuckSoup is running?
Yeah, so if you have DuckSoup running, there's a few things you can do. It depends, Sean, on what LinkedIn account you have. If you have basic LinkedIn, as in you're not paying for it, I wouldn't recommend you do anything else whilst DuckSoup is running. If you have a Sales Navigator account, it's fine to have DuckSoup running on one tab, such as this, and then on another LinkedIn tab, like that, you can then see you can just work on LinkedIn as normal. So it's fine to have two tabs open whilst one is running, but only if you have a Sales Navigator account. If you have basic LinkedIn, I would really recommend against it, because it can make your account, it could possibly get your account flagged. Okay, the next question.
From Celia. I'm a new user. Can I use DuckSoup Pro for any LinkedIn profile, or is it exclusively linked to mine?
Okay, thanks for the question, Celia, and welcome to the DuckSoup family. I think in terms of using your profile, everything is linked to the Chrome account, not to the LinkedIn profile. So by this, what I mean is that when you set up and you download it, you'll have a DuckSoup icon here, and this will be linked to your account. So that's my email there. So it's linked to the Gmail account that you use. So once you've got the Gmail account, you can log in with any LinkedIn account and run DuckSoup to send messaging and connecting. So in theory, you could use multiple different LinkedIn accounts with just one Chrome profile. However, the reason we sort of say against that is because if you imagine DuckSoup you have to have an individual message. If I show you here, we recommend to send a personalized message whenever you're connecting with people. So if you keep doing different LinkedIn message accounts, you're going to have to remember which message is relevant to which LinkedIn account and to keep changing. The other thing is DuckSoup tracks all the time, if you see the number here, the profiles you visited and their information. So at any time you can download all this information of profiles you visited, their email address, that sort of thing. If you're doing multiple LinkedIn accounts, that data is going to be all complicated and not know which profile you've visited with which LinkedIn account. So in theory, yes, you could do that, but for the cost of DuckSoup Pro, which is, I'll confirm what the price is here, is about $15, $20. Yeah, here we go. Oh, even $12 or monthly it's 15. It's really affordable. That I would say the amount of business that you generate from this, it's easier to have an individual Chrome profile for each LinkedIn account that you're running. Okay, next question, Rita.
How reliable is sending out connection requests, and is there a daily limit?
What's up, Muriel? Thanks for the question. I think in terms of how reliable, it depends what you mean by reliable. If you mean how reliable is it in terms of does it work, then yeah, it definitely works. How reliable in terms of will this generate you business? It's all depending on your message. So for example, under the options here for connection message, to get the best sort of responses, we usually recommend to keep things as personalized as possible. So having hi first name here. So you can have a merge tag that anybody you visit will find their first name. Then the connection message, we usually say, try and make it about you as a person. So what's your role? What's your interest? Why you would like to connect? So I would always say it would be great to connect to learn more about your company. So give that person a little bit of praise. The way that connections often fail or people ignore them is if you're too sales focused. So if you say, I'm the head of customer service at DuckSoup, and for $15.99 a month, you can sign up now. Here's your link, get started. People would just click ignore all the time because I'm not trying to connect with them, I'm just trying to sell to them. So really important that you connect as a person, build up a relationship, and if sales are going to come, they will come gradually as you get to know each other's products and what you're working on. So I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, we've got plenty of time today to ask more. Okay, Rita, next one.
Alan said that he signed up for DuckSoup Professional version.
Yeah.
But his Duck still indicates the starter version, and many of the options are still grayed out. What to do?
Okay, so I think I'll get the team to help with this one. But one of the main things are at different times, if you imagine with LinkedIn, they change their layout, not weekly, but almost every couple of weeks. And so every time DuckSoup changes the layout, LinkedIn changes the layout, DuckSoup updates the software to match. And if you click on the DuckSoup icon at the top right, you'll see in very small writing just here, it says version 6.3.2. So sometimes when you're having any problems, what our customer service team will always say is, what DuckSoup version are you on? Because often the answer to the question is, you've just got the older version set up. So that's one of the things that we want to do. In terms of how to fix this, Rita, what would be your advice?
So if you, Alan, purchased the Pro version, just go to DuckSoup options where Patrick is right now. Click on user tab. Yeah, and then just reset and reload your DuckSoup configuration.
Okay, brilliant. So if you see that any of the options are grayed out and not really working, go to user, click reset, and then click reload, and that will both reset the options as well as reload the version of DuckSoup. And I think most of the time that will fix any of the glitches. With anything, there's so many variables often in terms of the type of computer you have, the version you're on, that sort of thing, that sometimes we have to do a quick screen share and try and fix what you have. But the majority of problems can be fixed just based on resetting and reloading. Cool, thanks for that, Rita. Okay, who's next?
Okay, Sean. Should you limit messages? Example, I send out 6,000 direct messages to my first level connections. If it's bad or good idea.
Okay, so in general, Sean, I would say that's quite a bad idea, but it depends. Was that 6,000 messages in a day? Was that in a month? Or was that in a year? It depends. I think there's a few things to think about. So instead of the activity, try and think about the outcome of what happens. if you send 6,000 messages, are you hoping maybe 500 get back to you, 1,000 get back to you? If 500 do reply to you, do you have the capabilities to reply to them, to speak to them, to work with them anyway? So often when you're messaging people, try not to just be very general to say, I'm going to message all 6,000, but try and segment it a little bit. And by that, what I mean is that on your LinkedIn profile, if you go to search by people, and if you go to all filters, you can still filter by first degree, but you might filter by some more segments. So I might say, I want to do a first degree campaign to all my first degree connections that are based in the United Kingdom, that work at maybe internet or computer companies, and the title is founder. And if I did that, out of maybe 10,000 connections, I've now got 840. So I'd rather target those 840 with a bit of content to say, I have a new website, I've got a new service, I would love to speak to you, whatever the context of your message might be. But it's much better to message those people gradually than all 6,000 with a general message. The other thing is, if you think of the options of what you want to say, make sure you have this switched off and you have this one switched on and said, send a personalized message. So that as you're visiting all of these profiles, they're receiving this personalized message. In terms of the amount of messages you want to send, this is where it changes here up to direct messages. So you can send up to 1,000 per day. I would recommend no more than 250 per day maximum. If you have Sales Navigator, round about that. If you don't, round about 100 per day. You can go a little bit higher, but there's no need to go that high, because what you're trying to do is quality messages each day. People are replying, speaking to them, and then it goes again the next day. If you send 6,000 messages but can't keep on top of the replies, the start of the relationship will be bad because they're thinking you're very slow or don't have time to speak to them. So I would say try and segment both the audience and the amount of messages you send just to gradually get good results. And the other thing is, it'll not shock your LinkedIn account because you're only sending 100 or 200 a day, not 1,000 a day. Okay, next question.
It's from Philip. I'm a potential new user. I want to make sure that I don't mess up with my relationship with LinkedIn. I have 4,000 plus connections, and how do I use DuckSoup to not aggravate them?
Okay, so the first thing with DuckSoup is you can use it to connect with new people or to interact with your current audience. So when you go to DuckSoup options, you have the options here to send a connection request to second or third degree, or send to first degree. So if you don't want to annoy any of your current contacts, just never click this one. So always click send request to second and third degree. This means you're only going to be messaging new people. The other thing as well is, in terms of skipping, you can say anything like skip profiles visited in the past 31 days, or even never visit the same profile again if you want to go really hardcore. What this would mean is that once you've visited a profile once, either manually or even with DuckSoup, it's never going to visit again. So that's a sort of a safety proof. The other thing is, if you think about on LinkedIn, how you filter, just make sure you always filter by second degree, not first degree. This will mean that these are all people that are shared connections, but that are not in your connections at the moment. So these, in theory, will be new people you want to speak to. If you want to be really, really before you go live with any of this, one thing you might want to do is go through all of your current companies that you're working with. So if I go to first degree, go through any companies that you're working with, and say, for example, this person was a customer. What you can do on DuckSoup is tag people. So on the top right, once the person's loaded up, you can have a tag, and you could say customer. And so you could manually tag any of the people who you feel are a customer or family member or competitor, basically anybody who you don't want to speak to in the future. And then on DuckSoup options, you can have this option here, which is skip profiles tagged as customer. So basically anybody you visit, even if this person came up in my search criteria, DuckSoup would know to avoid it because it was customer. So just to reiterate that, there's a few things. One is only be connecting with second degree, so you're not messaging any of your first degree. Change the history skipper to never visit the same profile. And then tag any people who you want to make sure you don't message, and then you can skip these tagged profiles. So I think those are the main things of how it will work. On top of that, it's then just having more of a strategy of how do you want to use DuckSoup? Do you want to generate more leads? Do you want to build up your connections? So how you want to use it is up to you. But those things will make it safe. The final thing is in terms of the speed. I would say as slow as possible to start with. So visiting profiles slowest, scanning profiles slow, and profile visits, I would say 50 a day and then 25 connections. After maybe a week, I would then change that to maybe 100 profile visits and up to 50 connections a day. If you kept that consistent, you'd be fine with that for weeks, months, years. You can always go bigger and bigger, but if you do that, it means you're never going to stretch anything too much. So your account is always going to be safe. And if you build up about 4,000 connections, the last thing you want to do is put any of your LinkedIn account in jeopardy, which is why keeping these search criteria small will make sure that's safe. Okay, Ruta, next one.
Asking if we have any advice for slower internet connections to speed up the process, because it might take hours to go through a list.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So if I'm recommending to run this slower, what's the way that you're not just sitting, watching this for 3 hours to make sure it works? And this is where this option planner comes in. So if you imagine I find my target audience, and let's have a look here. If we search for people and we have a target audience who, let's just quickly add something, so second degree, United Kingdom, internet. So loads of people to target, and I think, okay, this is my target audience. This is who I want to work with. What I would do is I would set the DuckSoup options to be pretty safe in terms of slow, slow, slow. But then I would do is set this up, which is Planner. So the way that Planner works is that I can set random times, or I can set manual time. So I might say at 9 o'clock to 10, and then 12 till 2, and then maybe at 6 o'clock. Something like, yeah, there we go. I want DuckSoup to just run by itself. So what this means is if I leave this running just in the corner there, regardless of what I'm doing on other tabs, at these set times, DuckSoup will just open up, start visiting or connecting or whatever activities you want it to do, and then just close. So it means that you don't have to be just waiting manually for DuckSoup to work. You can let this run in the background and it'll just close by itself. And then by the end of the day, it'll work through all of the tasks without you worrying if you have to trigger any certain things. One thing that can also be good about this is under browser, if you change the display to today's visit count, it'll show in here how many LinkedIn profiles it's visited. So under your settings, if you say, I want to visit 100 profiles per day, you can just have a glance at any time to see where DuckSoup is up to. And you know that using this planner, it's going to start and stop at different times throughout the day. So that's probably the best way to run. So it's not a case of speeding things up. The speed's the same, but you're doing less work because it's just switching itself on and off in the background. Okay. Any other questions, Rita?
Yes. A few people asked how many connection requests they can send per day.
Okay, what's your thoughts on this? Because you get asked this question a lot.
Yeah, so we recommend sending no more than 3 or 5% of their total LinkedIn connections.
Okay, so I'll have a look. So help me find that resource. So is it under
in
support?
knowledge base? Yeah.
Knowledge base, and then here we go. So this is a really helpful. How many connection requests can I send a day? There's no actual set criteria on LinkedIn that tells you this. So you need to try and create your own formula. We've sort of found that if you think about 3 to 5% of your total LinkedIn connections is a good figure. So if you have 1,000 LinkedIn connections, sending no more than 30 connections a day seems about right. 10,000, then send 300 and so on. So try and use that formula to think about how many LinkedIn connections can I send per day. If you've got 1,500 connections, about 75 a day is fine. That's a good ratio that LinkedIn knows that you've got a lot of connections, so you're probably growing your account quite quickly. Likewise, if you've only got 100 connections, then sending about 3 to 5 a day is all you can do. Because if you suddenly send 100 and you already have 100 connections, it's getting a bit crazy. So try and keep that ratio is a sort of really good ratio to stick to. Cool.
Salvador is asking, can we send the same message to 100 people automatically, customizing their first name?
Yeah. So how would you fix this, Ruta? What do you think is the best way? Because I think it's on options. I think is going to be the best thing.
Just to use marker, yeah.
Yeah. So Salvador, I think the best thing is, yeah, you can use the same connection message to everybody, but you can have some variables here to change it. So what you might do is say, hi, first name. So I could say, hi, Salvador. I'm the head of customer service at DuckSoup, and it would be great to connect to learn more about. And even instead of your company, I could say to learn more about something like that. And so it'd say, hi, Salvador, I'm the head of customer service at DuckSoup, and it'd be great to connect to learn more about Salvador Company, Patrick. So there is a way of making it feel very personal, but actually highly automated. And I recommend you try that out to see how it works. Okay.
All right. So Alex is asking if he can use CSV file or Google Docs as a list of profiles for connecting and messaging.
Yeah, so there's a few ways around this. You can use, it needs to be a CSV file, and if you click on DuckSoup, and there's an option here called Revisit Data. So if you click on that, this will be the section where you upload your file to start visiting, connecting with. However, you need to make sure the format's correct. So if you click on this, please refer to this file, it'll download, and the format of the data needs to look like this. So the profile name, profile URL, first name, then last name. So if you've got any external data, make sure you tidy it up to be profile first name, then last name. If you do that, what you can do then is just upload it into here. So you upload the downloaded file like this one. And then once you've uploaded it, it'll just show the same way as LinkedIn works here, where the Ducks icon will say visit or connect or things like that. So a lot of people will use external softwares to maybe scrape software, scrape LinkedIn profiles, or even an example might be you export your sales CRM and all the LinkedIn profiles, you want to make sure you can connect with them. So using this option here of DuckSoup, and you go to right at the bottom, revisit data, upload your file there, and then just make sure you have the right options to either connect or first degree message. It's up to you. Okay, Rita?
Is there a way to leverage a list that includes a contact's name and company with no LinkedIn address? And if not, is there a way to efficiently find a group of LinkedIn addresses without searching for them one by one?
So what do you have, Karim? So the first name and the contact name and company. So there are a few tools out there where you can convert the contact name so first name, last name into a LinkedIn profile. I think if you just Google it, because there's about 4 or 5 different softwares out there that, because we're not working in tandem with DuckSoup, I don't want to recommend them too much because I can't guarantee how good they are. But there are a lot of softwares out there that you can put in a first name, last name, and company name, and that will create the LinkedIn profile for you. And then from that information, you can then use DuckSoup to connect. So there are softwares out there that will translate something for you. But without that information, you can't use DuckSoup because if you only have a first name or last name, DuckSoup isn't going to be able to find the information. The most important thing is you have the LinkedIn profile. So DuckSoup can find this and then connect with those people. I think the other question, though, what was that about? Is there a way to efficiently find a group of LinkedIn addresses without searching for them one by one? So when you say find a group of LinkedIn addresses, I think you need to go back to just finding a group first of all. So what I would recommend to do is this. So I would say instead of searching for profiles, you might search for groups. So if you type in something like, I don't know, growth hacking, and click search, and under the filter, instead of people, if you filter by groups, and then you look at the groups here, what you can do is find groups that are relevant. So relevant with people and your target members, that sort of thing. And then what you can do is click on members, and this gives you a list of all the people in here. And what you can do with DuckSoup is you can start to scan these profiles. So where it says DuckSoup at your service here, I could scan all these profiles here, and it won't scan all 10,000, but it'll scan, I think, the first 2,000 maybe, or first 1,500. I can scan all these profiles here of all the people in here, and then I can just quickly press stop. And then very simply, once I've scanned all these, if I click download data, I can then download the people I've scanned. And then that goes back to the previous point of now I've got a list of loads of different LinkedIn profiles. I can go to revisit data. And there you go. I can start to now, let's see if this loads up. I might need to refresh a bit. I'll get that going again. There you go. Sorry, it's crashed a little bit. I'll try that one more time. So there you go. So what I can do in the space of sort of seconds is I can scrape a LinkedIn group. I can, if you want, tidy up the data a little bit, but then I have a huge database here that I can now just start visiting and connecting and that sort of thing. So to find your group of data is basically find your group, use the DuckSoup scanning tool, which is this one here, export your data. You might want to delete and tidy a few people up first, and then you can visit and connect with them in bulk. Okay, final few questions, because there's loads coming in.
Even though this webinar is about Pro, but we have a few questions about Turbo.
Okay, so it's worth a quick introduction to see how it's going.
Okay, so Paul is saying, I have set up a list in Sales Navigator and set DuckSoup running, and it's sending custom invites successfully. 65 new contacts in 2 days.
Good.
When someone accepts, is there an auto response that can be sent just to new contacts?
Okay, so the way, if we have a look at options here, and we'll give you a bit of context. Here we go. So the way that DuckSoup works, for intro to anybody who's thinking about Turbo in the future, is it has a section called Connect. So it's usually grayed out unless you're a Turbo user. But if you're a Turbo user, you can use these functions. There is a webhook, a message bridge, and a remote control. And the way these things work is usually a trigger, a filter, and then an action. So the trigger is you always need to get information from LinkedIn to an external platform. And usually the platform is called Zapier, zapier.com. So if you switch on a webhook, what will happen is every time you visit a profile or you scan data like I've just done, or you're messaging people, anything like this, any of the information that you visit from a profile will be pulled from DuckSoup to an external platform such as Zapier. Message Bridge, the way this works is that any of the messages that are sent and received, DuckSoup will filter through those and pull that information to an external system. So again, to Zapier or maybe to your sales CRM, something like that. What Message Bridge will also do is run through all of your connections and filter by anybody who's been accepted, anybody who's received a message, things like that. And then what Remote Control does is the final step. So if you imagine, you might have an option where you have the LinkedIn profile, you filtered some information, but now you want to connect with them. The remote control is sending a connection message from anybody external to LinkedIn to then connecting with them. So the example might be you add a lead to your sales CRM, and then DuckSoup via remote control will automatically send them a connection message. So I think your question there in terms of using automated follow-up messages, how does that work, or how do you make sure it's only to new people? The recent release of DuckSoup, I think it was about a week ago now, it automatically tags anybody that will be that has responded to a message or who's accepted a connection request. So I think in terms of Zapier, you need to make sure you have the filter set up correctly, that the filter is anybody with a status invitation accepted or anybody with a status message to message. So I think if we have a look at options really quickly, I'll see if we can find this. I think it might be Message Bridge. Can you remember the one, Rita, where it shows the different settings in terms of member to member or invitation accepted? I think it might be, or maybe it's system tags. Yeah, so this is one of them that will help, but there's another one as well. So the way system tags now works is that anytime somebody accepts a connection request, they'll automatically tagged as default accepted. So within Turbo, what you can do is send a follow-up message based on if they've accepted the connection request, send a new one. So with these new settings, I mean, it'll only apply to your new connections. It won't apply to any old ones, and that should avoid that. The other thing is that anytime somebody responds to a message on LinkedIn, they'll be added this tag, default responded. So that means that any zaps that you've got set up to message people will be ignored, because DuckSoup will always skip anybody who has this tag, default responded. So it means that you'll never send a message again to somebody who you've already sent an initial message and they've replied. Any other questions on that, Rita?
Yeah, there's one good question. How to upgrade DuckSoup?
Okay, so I think, Rita, you're more the expert at this than me. So how do I upgrade from a basic user to a turbo user?
Yes, you just go to our website, pricing,
okay,
and then you need to decide if you want to do monthly subscription or yearly.
Okay, so if it's monthly, yeah,
so you'll be charged automatically every month. And just click on learn more.
Okay.
Get started. You just need to sign in with your Google account. Add card details, and you need to make sure that you cancel your pro subscription.
Okay, so what's the probably best thing to do is set up a turbo account first to make sure you definitely have an account, and then message customer support on maybe live chat or just email to say, what's the best way for me to cancel my account? Can they just cancel it themselves?
Yeah, they can cancel themselves as well. In their
in their Chrome settings.
Yes, Chrome
okay,
store.
so I would say update your account first, and then just quickly message us on live chat, and we'll show you how to cancel your current account. But the reason why I say message us on live chat is just we want to make sure there's a clear transition from you closing one account and open the other, so that there's nothing lost. But yeah, that should be how you upgrade your account to Turbo. Okay, last couple of questions. So I'm really happy with everybody asking so much.
I just quickly want to say thank you to Karen. She's saying that customer support is great.
Okay, so that's Rita blowing her own trumpet there. So good for that. But thanks, Karen. We work really hard, and I think one thing that people forget is that we are just human beings on the other side of a computer. So a lot of times as a customer, it'll drive you nuts when you're trying to do something and it's just not working. So the best thing to do is be patient, be polite, and just give us as much information as you can. So if you've ever got a bug, we recommend this software called Use Loom. It's quite a nice software. This is a free Chrome extension, this one here. But the way it works is that you can record your screen and share a link really easily. And when people are trying to explain the problems, what could be 5 or 6 emails back and forward are so much easier if you just record your screen and just say, this is the issue I'm having, how can you fix it? And so if you want to get a really quick fix on something, the more information you give us, the better. But we really appreciate the feedback because we work very hard, and we know things aren't always easy just on LinkedIn at all, never mind using DuckSoup, and never mind trying to generate new business as well. So anything we can do to help you with that, let us know. So I think, is there one final question from anybody just to finish it off?
Sure. Yeah. When you build data of, let's say, 500 people, why does it only return less, maybe about 460?
So I wonder, do you think they mean when visiting profiles or when connecting, or what do you think?
Maybe visiting.
Okay, so Muriel, there's a few things for that. So you might find your here we go, your LinkedIn audience, and it might show 500 profiles. So something like, let's see here. So you go to search, and then people. And then if we make this really specific, so I don't really know, let's say Brazil. I don't know too many people in Brazil. Okay, still a lot. So this will bring out a lot of results. What happens is you might think there's 3,000 results and you might want to connect with all of those. However, you might have different DuckSoup options that are stopping you doing that. So for example, in skipping, you might say skip if outside your network or skip if the profile photo is blank. So if we go back to LinkedIn, there might be a few people here with a blank photo. Don't know if there's any here. But if they do, LinkedIn will, like these ones, LinkedIn will automatically skip these. So even though you think you found that set number, you might have the settings to say skip these people, which is why your number isn't the same as the total number of results you find. So I think that's often the case a lot in terms of you might skip if the photo is blank, some might be tagged, some might be outside of your network. And that's usually why you can't find the same sort of number. But let me know if there's any other problems, but that's usually the fix to get started. Perfect. So I think thanks everybody for your questions. There wasn't one set topic, but I hope you found some new and interesting ways, and give us some feedback, because we're always trying to find the best ways to solve your problems. And if you think that something like a weekly webinar of asking questions like this is better than set webinars on other certain things, or even better than customer service tickets or different things, just let us know and we're always here to help. But appreciate all your time and take care, and we'll have another webinar sort of roughly the same time next week, where you can sign up. If you go to webinars here, you can see the sort of list of things coming up in the future and previous webinars to watch as well. So keep in touch, and thanks for all your time. Cheers, everyone.